Suppose you're wondering what this actually is. Well, this is an AM radio transmitter that I've made. Now, I know one of you, I'm not going to mention any names here, but in a previous video I did where I broadcasted on AM radio, you got a little bit worried about me. It's not like I'm trying to set up my own pirate radio station or anything like that. All I'm doing is doing this just to show that it works, really. And I'm sure the transmission range of this thing doesn't even go outside of the house. So, now we've cleared that little bit up, let's take a closer look at it. Right, well, let's start at this end. Here we've got the power supply, one transformer to power one part of the radio transmitter, and this transformer to power the other part. Standard stuff you'd find in any power supply. We've got a rectifier here connected to a smoothing capacitor. Oh, this resistor here is connected in line just to limit the power. Then we've got another little rectifier here with a voltage regulator on it. Pretty standard stuff. And these two transistors do a pretty important job. This one sends the carrier wave to the antenna, which is this thing here, a loop antenna from an old radio. And this one controls the amount of power getting into the antenna. Just apply an audio signal into there and we get modulated output. And the frequency is controlled by this little chip here, which I'm just using as a voltage controlled oscillator. So if I apply an audio signal to the voltage that this chip is getting to control its frequency, I can actually make this produce FM on the AM frequency band, and we're going to do that in just a minute. And later on we are going to scope the waveforms so you can see how it looks. But first, let's use this as an AM transmitter and see how good it actually sounds. Okay, here we have a radio which is tuned to the frequency that the transmitter is transmitting on, so I'm going to turn this on. Now I'm going to turn the transmitter on. Silence at last. And of course I can change the frequency this transmits on by twiddling this little potentiometer here. Anyway, let's just try to get that back onto what it was. Yeah, that's about right. Now let's give it an audio signal. Now what I've gone and done is I've connected the output of this tape deck to the transmitter. I know that might seem a little bit of an odd thing to do since this thing already has a tape deck on it. But you know, can't play any records on YouTube because of the stupid copyright thing. So I'm just going to have to use my own music here. So, I'll start this thing playing. And there it is, coming out of the radio. And just to prove it is on the radio, if I could just get my camera over to the dial here. So there you go. And I will show that music in its entirety at the end of this video.
And now let's see a typical...
Yeah, there's something else on the tape. I've got the scope connected across the source and drain of this MOSFET. And that's going to be our best chance of actually getting to see some waveforms here. So turn the scope on and wait for it to warm up. Hopefully it's working today. Alright, and turn it on. And hopefully you can see the waveform. Maybe if I just turn the lights out so you can see it a little better. Now I've had to turn the sensitivity of the scope down really much, because if I put it on 5 volts per division, and it's already almost reaching the top of the screen there, so I'm just going to turn it down just a little bit. It's all about there. So we're getting almost 40 volts peak to peak there, and that's because of the sort of back spike from this coil. There's not much I can do about that. I tried putting a diode across it, and although it did smooth out the waveform, the sound was very distorted. Let's play some audio.
In the life of a teenager. 3 p.m. Ricky, the typical teenager, wakes up.
And you can see it going up and down there as it's modulating the amplitude of the waveform. So that works pretty good. I've now connected a diode across this coil. And as you can see, we're getting a much more reasonable looking waveform. Unfortunately, it now sounds like utter crap with the diode connected, but you can see okay, let's just turn the radio off. But you can clearly see the effects of the modulation now. Now I know the output from a proper AM transmitter doesn't look quite like that. I mean, an AM transmitter has a true sine wave that's going up and down in amplitude, but this is about the best I can do. I've now disconnected the diode, and I've connected the audio to the voltage controlled oscillator, and you can just about see the waveform now. And when I play an audio source, you can kind of see the waveform is shimmying back and forth. If I just make it a little bit louder, you can see how it's doing that. Maybe just change the time base so you can see that a little bit better. You can see as you can see it right at the end, it's going back and forth a bit, so it's modulating the frequency this time instead of the amplitude. And I'm just going to turn it down quite a bit because this is quite sensitive. Now let's turn on the radio. There it is. So let's go back to the music. I'm just rewinding the tape. Right. Sounds quite distorted, but if I off tune, sounds much better. So that's a frequency modulated audio playing on a AM radio. Just do a little circuit diagram of this thing and then I'm gonna go. Okay, well here's the circuit diagram for people who want to see it. Anyway, I'm not gonna go through it because I barely got any sleep last night and I can barely concentrate on what I'm doing right now, so I'm just gonna leave the video here. I'll leave you with the music, and yeah, until next time, goodbye.